that broke your rule, right? We don't trust, we validate.
Mm-hmm.
Who did the validation? Some outside force. You allowed,
Not
on
me.
average, the community, which isn't a community. You don't understand. Nobody speaks for Bitcoin. Blah, blah, blah.
It is a community.
Okay. Allowed yourselves to get suckered by validation. Now, one of the things I will say in my own defense, because I'm the only one defending me here, right?
You did as well.
We love you, by the way.
No,
you know that, right? I mean,
I've been super excited. I've been super excited to do this, and we are natural allies, and this will all work out in the end.
But you watch your step. If you put a foot wrong, we'll fucking come after you.
Which is why I'm introducing Eric Coin. What I was going to say is that I didn't allow you guys to push me off Bitcoin when you're being dicks, and I'm not going to abandon Bitcoin because its number goes down. And so from my perspective, I'm just looking at this laughing, no offense, which is, I got your stuff better than you did, which is, don't suck up to the billionaire.
Well, we can't be absolute about this. There were plenty of people when Elon came in, plenty of, you've heard of the plebs, plenty of those were like, not sure. And you know what? And I think it's made everyone a bit cautious now. Even, I would say, since this episode, even Michael Saylor is now being watched with a different eye. And like, I don't mind saying that. I was saying to him, I think there is that kind of nervousness now. And I also think one of the things with the Elon thing is like, he's getting a lot of pressure. I think it's the reason he's getting a lot of pressure because he's being tested now. Like, you're either in properly.
Well, what he did was just wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And it was wrong at multiple levels.
Well, what do you think he did wrong? Because
one thing I did wrong is that he explains why he's backing away from this based on information that he had when he was backing into it.
Yeah.
Huge question.
So, my feeling is, come on, cut the crap.
What do you think happened?
Who cares? I mean, here's my problem. I don't think Elon is really central to the Bitcoin story. I just don't.
Agreed.
Okay. I think that
I think he needs pushing away from it.
No.
Yeah.
I think that the key thing is you got to free your mind of Elon, right? You have to appreciate Elon for all the wonderful things that he is, and you have to recognize that it's counterbalanced by all the things that he is that you wish he wasn't, right? And in so doing, he is like the rest of us, right? Now, what I get is that Bitcoin is bigger than any particular person. It doesn't really belong. It's decentralized. Okay, that's its ethos. Within that ethos, I think Elon is a guy working out his own problems from being too famous and under too much scrutiny. And so he likes to say random stuff. He likes to, his comment that the world takes the path that is maximally entertaining. Right? It's pure chaotic neutral, right? At some level. Yeah. And so in a weird way, he's not your hero. He's not your villain. I don't think he's done with Bitcoin. My sense of it is that he's going to come back into the Bitcoin universe. What happened with Tesla being forward-thinking enough to accept Bitcoin immediately resulted in Tesla not being forward enough to accept Bitcoin because it wasn't ready. And in so doing...
It wasn't ready?
Yeah.
What do you mean it wasn't ready?
My belief is that there's a reason that so few large ticket items advertise that they are purchasable simply in Bitcoin for a reason. You're talking about something with volatility properties that if it comes in contact with the normal financial universe are going to lead to enormous swings. If you hold a lot of Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you've got a situation if you're going to be priced in a numeraire like USD.
It's completely conjecture on my part, but I would guess that Tesla sold about 40 Teslas for Bitcoin. Like it just,
who knows?
It's a guess, but there's Gresham's law. I mean, bad money drives out good. You spend the money that's not very good at being money, and you hoard the money that's good at being money.
I'm trying to get the idea that when you're first out of the blocks to try to do something big like this, you find out all the reasons why nobody else has done it.
Right.
Right? So you announce something, you get all the plaudits. People say, wow, great job. And then you actually have to manage the situation. And so I remember thinking, and maybe this wasn't a very elevated thought, I wonder how long that's going to last. Right?
Accepting Bitcoin for payment for Teslas, plus buying $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin on a publicly traded company's balance sheet, if you're going to, that's about 1% impactful accepting Bitcoin and 99% impactful that he put it on his balance sheet.
Yes, but my feeling is it was all coming from something that wasn't very well thought out. And that my point wasn't about which has more impact. My thought was, maybe it's just dumb, but I heard Tesla's accepting Bitcoin and I thought, so cool. That was my first reaction. My second question was, I wonder how long that's going to last.
Yeah, but the 180 with a press release based on energy uses and then energy use becoming the narrative.
Yeah, but maybe the idea is that what he really thought about was that he'd spent so much time on a green narrative with a car company, he hadn't figured out how, like maybe he had rejected the idea that Bitcoin wasn't green enough. And then he found that that was going to be too difficult. Who knows? But again,
well, yeah,
my question is, I really want to talk to Elon about interplanetary stuff and physics. I'm not that interested in talking to Elon about crypto unless he's going to do something huge using his wealth or his brain. But it just, again, I get back to this. I'm somewhat bored of the standard conversations we can have around this. Like, what is it that you guys want to do that's next level and awesome? And that's a great, I feel like the Bitcoin community is one of the best communities to take on the future. And I'm much more interested about what a bunch of pirates want to do. I've got a huge number of rich, idealistic pirates. That should be the most riveting thing. That's one of the reasons that I was dying to do your show when you asked me. We've got rich, smart, heterodox, idealistic, iconoclastic pirates.
Yep.
Okay, what are we doing?
We're going to build a country.
Are we?
Maybe.
Okay.
We find the right island.
We started with money.
We got enough of it.
There is this turn of phrase of like, save the money, save the world. Fix the money, fix the world.
I understand that.
And
so right now I have things I want to fix right now.
What do you want to fix? I'll tell you how Bitcoin fixes it.
Right, my relationship with my second cousin. Bitcoin fixes everything. Okay. What really is going on for me is sense making.
The interesting.
What do you mean? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
We used to have newspapers. We used to have universities. We used to have scholars.
But we're turning everything on its head right now.
You Bitcoin, or we?
No, everyone. Everybody is. Everybody's questioning everything. Questioning the media, questioning education, questioning politics. Everything is being rethought out right now.
Except for things like honey badgers, which just don't care. Right? And Bitcoin is supposed to be like a honey badger.
I think they care first. You
think honey badgers care the most?
Well, no. Just about certain things. It's like they're the first ones. They were the first ones that I saw, who were they were trashing the media. They were trashing politics. They trash everything. Basically, they don't trust Verify. They don't trust vaccines. Not everyone.
Who?
It's a spectrum.
Who's they? Bitcoiners generally.
Bitcoiners generally, and it's a spectrum. Certainly more on the right. Or right-leaning or libertarian. There are some on the left, but they keep quiet because they get attacked for being socialist. But certainly they see that you have to change the money to fix a lot of these problems. You can. The root of a lot of these problems is the money, the cheap credit.
Okay.
You fix that money, you fix a lot of these problems. I mean, you've talked about it a lot, about the degradation of society.
Yeah.
The
embedded growth obligation. I'm all over this action. We are supposed to be natural allies.
Yeah,
it's just that the idea is that I'm supposed to put laser eyes in my profile photo, and I'm supposed to say I'm a maximalist now, as if I've touched a pot or I'm some kind of a Stepford wife. F that.
No, nobody's asking.
But no.
You got laser eyes, Travis.
I took mine off.
Yeah, I took mine off.
All-time high.
Okay. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
If I was going to try and attempt to bridge a lot of the things that I've heard you talk about in various different capacities, I would bring up this concept called the trust revolution that I've talked about for a while, and it's something that initially attracted me to this asset class and this technology in 2017 when I was first going down the rabbit hole, and it's actually stunning how much it's been exacerbated since then. But we have seen unchecked power failing society at multiple levels, and that is getting worse, not better. And society is recoiling from that to an increasing degree. And younger generations feel this more acutely than older generations. I think millennials and Gen Z are generations that think Wall Street is rigged, politicians are crooked, and big tech takes your data and they do shitty stuff with it, or they don't keep it safe, or they use it to make themselves the richest people in the world, and they don't return that value back. And there's commonalities across, and you can ask the question like, when did this start? And I think you could make the case that it started when in 2001 on the back of 9/11, when we went over in the Middle East and tens of thousands of lives were lost on the American side and many more on the other side. $10 trillion were spent. And what we went over there for in the first place never ended up happening. And there was a question about why that happened. And then it was exacerbated in 2008 on the back of the financial crisis when you damn near blew the whole world up. Nobody went to jail. Everybody, the bankers were all fine. And then you fast forward to Brexit and Donald Trump. And why did those two things happen on the other side of the world within a handful of months of one another, but with like sort of like the exact same underlying drivers? And then you just had hit after hit, NSA spying, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement.
It's all coming apart.
Harvey Weinstein, all of these things. And society is recoiling from, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the question is, what decentralized power, what does that do?
So I think
we don't know.
I think distributed ledger technology can serve as the technological platform to drive societal change for the good, in that it can start to dismantle these centralized powers that are failing the people. And money's a great place to start with that. And it obviously dovetails into the way our political system is in the United States right now, which is, I think as broken as it's been since, I don't know, maybe the Civil War. I don't know.
Well, because you and Brett tried to make an attempt on it and you became censored.
Yeah, well, I didn't believe Brett's attempt would work, but I was willing to throw my name behind him because it shows why we can't have nice things.
Well, the most interesting thing about that was the censoring of it.
Exactly.
Like what?
Well, that was the whole point, is that as soon as you have something that's completely non-threatening, like bipartisanship should be threatening to no one. Of course, it has to be censored because that's what's really threatening, right? So if you had stable money and you had bipartisanship and you had a green world that was much less dependent on fossil fuels, what would power do, right? I mean, it would just spy on you, on your relationships with your ex-boyfriend on Facebook, or I don't know what it would do. So we have a situation whereby, real power, which is very hard to locate and find out who's behind it, has, I think, been has been decreasing. But everybody else's power has been decreasing at an accelerated rate to that. So I believe that our central shadowy powers still exist, but they aren't that powerful. What's happened is that everyone else has gotten incredibly weakened. And Bitcoin is one of the few things as a community that's gotten stronger. And so the really interesting question is, okay, well, what do you guys want to do? Is just hang on for dear life and buy a Lambo at some point? Is that what we're doing, or are we taking on nation states? What's the plan here? There is no plan.
It's not binary.
We don't need a plan.
It's not binary.
What?
It's not binary. We can get Lambos and take them on.
Well, but you're taking them on less. I'm really excited. I mean, you have to appreciate, I'm really excited about not dying, right? Not dying is one of the things that excites me the most.
Okay.
And
are you getting cryogenically frozen?
Not that kind of not dying.
Okay.
You have kids?
I have 2.
All right. That kind of not dying.
Okay.
Right? So my feeling is I want my lineage not to have a death sentence. And being trapped on a thermonuclear planet with lunatics with fingers on the button is not my idea of a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So I want out of that. And most determinedly, I want off this planet.
So you want to go to Mars?
No.
Where do you want to go?
Mars and the moon are starter planets, but there are only 2 of them.
Is Elon going to give you a seat?
No, he's not going to give me. I don't know Elon.
Oh, I thought you might be able to apologize to him for me because I kind of need a seat.
He's giving me your seat.
He's giving you my seat. Fucker.
No, I mean, I think what we need to do is focus on physics.
Okay.
And I keep saying to you guys, okay, you're getting so rich, number go up. When are we doing physics? When are we actually going to invest in the ability to escape this planet? No, again, that's my pet thing, which is that I want humans to survive.
Yeah. Okay. That's not my pet thing.
Yeah, you don't care.
I know, I do, but I just think it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Probably not happen in my kids' lifetime. It's not my focus of attention. My focus of attention is...
You are aware that there are UFOs.
Yeah, this is a good timing, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you should rescale your time horizons.
Are you a UFO?
Everyone is.
You are. Well, look, I just...
Are you not?
I just don't know. I'm just not sure.
Oh, you should verify. Don't trust me.
Well, listen, look, but I'm in more simple terms. I'm not I'm a bit of a moron, really, and I don't have a university degree, and all I can think about are the things that are close to me, which is me.
So here you are bragging that you weren't dumb enough to invest in a university degree, and you're doing it through false humility.
I'm a dropout. I'm a university
Peter,
dropout.
you're really pissing me off.
I'm a university dropout. I am actually a university dropout. I'm good. I have to when I get a smart person, I have to bring someone smart like Travis to help me. Listen, look, I have to think close to me and what's important to me. And the things that are close and important to me is me and my family. What's going to happen to the UK over the next 10, 20 years? Is it going to see a similar? Well, it is seeing a similar societal breakdown as the US happens. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to be? What's going to give me freedom? I actually start from a very selfish point. What is best for me and best for my family? Where should I live? Actually, quite like look at Texas at the moment, though. But by the by, and then what can I do to help others? And I think in terms of this, in terms of what we do with Bitcoin, it's just trying to drive some form of choice and financial freedom, some kind of separation from this system, which is unfair. Like my producer, you know the website, WTF71, because you like it. My producer, Ben, worked on that. I know that what we've seen is like a lot of my friends would be traditionally middle class, now don't really have much disposable income at the end of each month.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we're seeing, so I see Bitcoin as a chance to...
So is it a revolution? Is it a financial revolution?
It's definitely a monetary revolution.
Okay.
But I don't understand how it's going to play out, because we're building something new here. It's a form of money we've never had before, completely decentralized, completely digital. We're trying to decentralize power. I mean, we talked about what happened with Elon earlier. We go through learning lessons. 2017 was a scaling war. We learned that forks aren't popular. We learned that big blocks don't work. This year, we've learned that billionaire power isn't good. We keep going through these.
Oh, but you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Maybe if I'd thought about it.
You guys made an exception.
If I'd have rationalized it,
maybe you made an exception for a particular billionaire because the particular billionaire showed up with the cachet of cool.
Well, strictly speaking, then we've made the same for Michael Saylor. So we've made it for 2 billionaires and Jack Dorsey, a third billionaire. So it's not just, we've made it for all billionaires.
Well, let's say it's not really about billionaires. It's about acceptance.
Yeah, and the validation. And
validation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish, in part, I'm looking for confidence, right? The confidence of the community. And we talked about the toxicity.
Oh, they're confident.
Oh, no, they're not.
I mean, you could wheel some maximalists out here
Yeah.
that would give you a line that there'd be zero doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about absolutism, right? Totalizing behavior is one of the downfalls of the system. I mean, if we brought somebody out who was completely convinced of Salafist Islam, would they be confident? I mean, they might be willing to blow themselves up, to show their confidence that they had an eternal reward taking out people who were threats, to Islam. I don't know.
What do you mean by confidence then?
Yeah, I don't think I know the difference between confidence and conviction.
Well, confidence. I think at some point you're looking for a quieter, kind of more deliberative phase of this project. Like the initial phase is,
phase is survival.
Well, yes, you say I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about the UK, right? So the first thing we saw was you're worried about you, and you're worried about your family, which is you extended.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were worried about UK, which is your country.
And my friends. Put them
and your friends. Okay, so friends, next country. So, these are sort of circles of empathy,
mm-hmm.
and they're radiating out. And eventually, you care about all of your fellow men. There comes to be a point where you're not worried about the Bitcoin. You're not worried about your own personal finances. You're not worried about whether you're right or you're wrong. You've already given yourself your pats on your back. And you start thinking, okay, well, what is this meant to do? What should we be doing? And in part, it's going to be a self-organizing system. And one of the things that we're going to find out is, did this select for people who are able to form institutions themselves? Or are these people who hate institutions so much, we're not going to do that? That's what boomers did, man. Okay, so now, if you form institutions, what will the nature of those institutions be? One possibility, you see, is that Silicon Valley was not good at forming new institutions because it was so good at taking apart old ones. So, the concept of software eating the world meant, why should I create anything in the world if software is just going to eat it later? So the only thing worth doing is doing lightweight software things, because everything that's brick and mortar is going to get blown away. Well, in a certain sense, it may be, here's a good reason why Bitcoin should fail. Bitcoiners, being decentralized, are going to build decentralized things. And those decentralized things will be very good at removing corrupt things that are centralized. And it will be very bad at actually creating the new framework that we need when centralization is necessary. Yeah. Now, that I don't know. That's a story, right? It's not necessarily a true story. Maybe the Bitcoiners are exceptionally good at doing centralized thing when centralization is called for. I don't know.
Well, we're talking in absolutes again. That's the thing about Bitcoin, is there's a range. There is an absolute range. There are those that want complete breakdown of the state and believe in anarchism, which I don't. I don't think it's not whether I theoretically believe it or not. I just don't believe it can happen, because humans want to organize.
You and I have talked about
we talked about this, and we had that conversation because I found, oh God, I'm going to get so much hate for saying this, but I found your conversation with Brett about the monopoly on violence really interesting, because I was trying to weigh up the net of both scenarios, absolute freedom versus state and a monopoly on violence, and like, which is net best? And it depends where you measure it. Like, if you are a complete freedom loving anarchist, you absolutely believe that you should be free and no one should have any right to make any decision over you. Others believe that it's better that we organize and we have agree collective rules. I find that super interesting, but the spectrum is there. You have got anarchists, and you've got some quiet under the radar socialists who don't want to admit it because they don't want to get called us, and everything in between, so there are a range of people, and they want to do a range of things. But I think the common thing that brings most Bitcoiners together is they want to end what is considered the cancer of central banking. That is, I think that is one
What
of
is the cancer of central bank?
I just think it's the ability to mess with the money, and that where you are, you've seen different impacts with whether you're in Venezuela, which I've been to see the impact, or whether you're in Lebanon, it's different, or whether you're in Turkey, it's different levels of inflation that's affected it. But I think generally speaking, there is that common understanding, a common agreement that the money printer is too easy to turn on now. There is no check on the power of the money printer. And if we can end that or rein that in, that's going to be better for society.
And what if you had an MMT person across from you?
I've done it. I did it with Stephanie Kelton. I enjoyed having the conversation. I think she's full of shit, but I enjoyed having the conversation.
Okay, but let me just stand in for since she's not here. Right? So the idea is, no, you don't understand. This is great. We have a problem if we can't print our way out of our own debt. You have to appreciate that this is a feature, not a bug, and that in effect, part of the problem is that if you actually introduce the kind of money that you want to introduce, you're going to be condemning society to cyclical tragedy. That effectively, without central banking and various illusions involving money, we have no way of dampening this cycle. And it's just going to be a cycle of monetary and financial violence that is revisited upon everyone at times of the market's choosing and not when we can afford it.
Well, if you can't print money, you can't go to war in most cases. And when you look at the collapse of fiat currencies, the vast majority of time they happen because a country went to war and kept going to war and financing wars that it couldn't win. And in that way, trying to remove that capability over a long period of time from governments is like unequivocally a peaceful endeavor.
I've never actually always bought that argument because we've always been pretty much in a perpetual state of war somewhere on this planet.
We can get back to the nature of humanity on that, but just looking at the history of fiat currency collapses, they happen from war.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think it's sometimes I feel it's a bit reckless to say, oh, if you fix the money, there won't be any more war.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's
humans, we're going to do what we do. Although we're killing each other less than we ever have before.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So based on what you said, the Stephanie Kelton argument, let me tell you my position. So the position I hold isn't as common in Bitcoiners, or if it is, it's under the radar. I actually think there will be a symbiotic relationship with fiat currencies and Bitcoin forever, and I don't think we will lose the state. Some would disagree. My friend Robert Breedlove, big fan of the sovereign individual, he thinks this, we're on a different path because the logic of violence changes with technology. And I love the arguments, I love the theory, but I think humans organize and they want a bit of protection, want a bit of centralized protection. I think what will happen is we will have potentially some checking on the power with Bitcoin, but you will still have the money printer, but it would have to be used in a more responsible way. So for example, go back to pre-71. I'm not a huge expert on the gold standard, okay? But there was a check on the money, but it didn't stop government being able to have the ability to print money. And I think that symbiotic relationship is needed. I still think you need some form of way of organizing society. Because if you have the big, I spoke to Scott Horton. He was like, you don't want to have the big red button to get rid of government, even though he's a libertarian. He said it'll be chaos. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is, let's say, target making it just a bit smaller. It was Eric Voorhees who told me that, 1% or 5% smaller. And let's just try and check because it's got out of hand now. So if Bitcoin can reduce government by 1% next year, I would call that a huge success. Huge success.
Yeah. I don't know where, I think you and I are in different places.
Well, I expected that.
Yeah. I think I'm worried about general collapse at a level that you're not.
Oh, no, I am.
Okay.
No, I am. But different types of collapse.
Societal collapse?
Yeah. Beyond. I'm worried right now that what we have is we have a technically demanding planet. Mm-hmm. Leadership, peacetime leadership that is completely mismatched with the challenges that we actually face. A potential energy function for violence that is confusing everyone from Steven Pinker on down, because this idea that in general things are as peaceful or more peaceful than they've ever been. And it's just like, wow, this forest hasn't burned for 75 years. Mm. Well, what do you think is going to happen when it does burn for the first time in 75 years? It's going to be pretty exciting. So right now, what I think is that we're in a terribly dangerous situation that isn't obviously dangerous. And I'm much more concerned, I think, than you guys are.
No, I definitely. Do you think we're in a fourth turning?
Can I be straight?
Yeah.
I hate this stuff.
Why?
Well, because I've been talking recently about this as snap to grid intellectualism, right?
We had this conversation.
And snap to grid intellectualism is like, you said something that reminds me of something I heard. And then somebody will repeat something like, strong men make good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. It always is a cycle, right? And then you just think, okay, well, that has some kind of naive hold on my mind, but let me break that for a second. Since 1952, we've had thermonuclear weapons. So don't talk to me about the fourth turning. Like, we can't afford for weak men to make hard times and know that this thing goes on forever.
Yeah.
Things changed. Huge, enormous change occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And so my concern is I'm here to have a different conversation. I don't want to have I don't want to have a Milton Friedman conversation. I don't want to have a Hayekian conversation. I don't want to have an Ayn Rand conversation. I don't want to have an MMT conversation. You guys are something new. I'm here to have a new conversation without fourth turnings. We're in deep shit. You guys are rich. You guys are talking about a new form of money that doesn't have a country to go with it. It's not a chemical element, right? What is the biggest, most beautiful future that you imagine for your families? Like, mine begins with survival.
It's a life raft right now.
I believe me, I hear that.
Yeah,
but like, what are we going to disintermediate? Who are we going to disintermediate? What are we doing?
I'm not sure we can change anything, Eric. We can try.
Okay, well, that's the thing.
But my point is, I think we may be on this natural path to collapse, or certain collapses in society. We may be on this natural path to high inflation coming soon. The reason I said the fourth turn, it's not because I believe it's going to happen, but the book's interesting because, same old saying, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, right? There is a lot of similarity. Perhaps this is something we can't stop. I don't know. What are you specifically worried about?
All right. I'm worried about a universe where the chairs that are supposed to be reserved for smart people have no smart people sitting in them.
We should probably... Rich, you want to come up here?
Are you referring to people in government? Because we're there right now.
Yeah.
Not just government.
And we definitely got the B team out there right now.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I'm so thrilled with our tech companies either. And I'm not so sure that I'm thrilled with our university departments. And I'm not so thrilled with our newspapers and our news agencies. Like, more or less, this is what's interesting.
This is the abundance of information.
Decentralization can be the catalyst across all of those things.
Well, maybe I'll throw some. I just feel like it's almost impossible to have the interesting conversations anymore. I don't even know how to do it, right?
Well,
so in part, my thought is, if you really wanted me to talk and say something that's going to piss off your audience that I find fascinating, it's how do you get a bunch of people who get decentralization to do something centralized, right? That's hard. That's one of the reasons why I'm not totally maximalist in my orientation, right? At some level, you got a bunch of hard-bitten people. We don't trust. Okay, I get it. You don't trust. Okay. You're going to have to trust. And you're going to have to do something centralized if you're going to do something that shows that this was what you guys said it was.
Well, there's a different point here. We're decentralized with power, the platform, the protocol. Okay. You can get them together to centralize to go and do something external for Bitcoin. Just don't make it Bitcoin. Like, you can, if you wanted to create the, for example, libertarians who are anti-politics, I always find that's a bit of a problem. I think if you want to attack
You're not
politics,
a libertarian.
I'm not. I love the ideas theoretically.
Do you like hanging out with libertarians?
I do like hanging out with them. I love them.
Right?
I think the picture they paint of the world is incredible.
That's the problem. It's if it were credible, I'd be more excited. It's incredible.
Well, the problem is, from whatever political position you're in, you believe your story is credible, and you believe others aren't credible. I was just down in El Salvador with a group of people. One of the girls from the US was trying to sell me on Marxism. She thinks it's great. I was like, what?
Marxism?
Yeah, she's trying to sell me on Marxism. The point being is,
if you can sell Marxism, you have talent in sales.
No, she didn't do a good job. But the point being is, she hates capitalism, right? Whether you're left, whether you're right, whether you're libertarian anarchist, from where you are, you believe your picture of the world is right and everything else is nonsense. And what we haven't got is enough people trying to see everyone else's version of the world. That's what we don't have. Everyone's like, this is my fucking, it's selfish.
Well, but we're getting back to...
Yeah. What do you think we need to do? Just tell us. When you say centralized, what do you mean? You mean we need to go political, attack the system with our money and change it?
You've got a survival issue. Look, I bore myself on this topic, but this is the end game. We're watching the end game. We can't recognize that it's the end game because we're not we're not in a shooting war with China at the moment.
Yet.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning that Bitcoin is like firmly in the middle of U.S.-China relations.
Mm-hmm.
Firmly.
Okay. We are in a situation in which we've got a dire economic problem, which is communism failed first. Capitalism appears not to be able to get the job done. We don't seem to be able to think much beyond communism versus capitalism. This is what's new, gentlemen. This is what's new. And we're still having old style conversations about what's new.
You're circling. I feel like you want to tell us something. And I'm like...
No, I don't want to tell you anything because every time I don't want to say anything like that. Because if I say, I'm Eric Weinstein and I believe X, Y, and Z. Oh, Eric Weinstein thinks.
Yeah, but I don't care about them. I care about these.
That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is I would like this to do something new beyond just be a new form of money.
Well,
if it doesn't want to do that, if it just wants to be a new form of money and it wants to make sure that some people can have hopes and dreams for their children and you can buy that heart operation you were hoping to get your spouse or who knows what, great. No arguments with it. I happen to have a different question, which is, does it solve everything, right? That's really my question. Because if it solves everything, I would know what I would want to go shopping for first. What I would want to go shopping for is a return of sense-making and a lineage-level solution for human survival. Now, people, they aren't used to these things, right? They say, like if you had $1 billion, what would you? Oh, I'd buy my great aunt, the house she'd always want. Okay, that's great. I would like to get off this planet. And I would like to get off this planet with options because as we just saw under COVID, we're running one centralized experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And that one centralized experiment is too dangerous with this many stupid people in positions of leadership. And right now, whatever we're selecting for in terms of leadership, we used to have a lot of brutal people on the world stage who are very talented. And we have fewer brutal people on the world stage.
And way less talent.
And way less talent. Right? And so this idea of making everything dumber, we've had 75 years of peace that are coming due. We are out of shape. We have no idea what enforced 75 years of peace within a thermonuclear planet. And that this is coming to an end, right? So my feeling is we've had what I've called the Great Nap. We've had 75 years to get out of shape, to forget what it means to be a country, why we have centralized institutions. Nobody can even remember why we have journalists because they used to put their lives on the line to get the story and follow certain sorts of codes. Now they seem to be, a pox on...
But you know why that is. Again, that comes down to the money. They don't have the money anymore. I mean, it's part... Yeah, the internet changed things. It changed the economics of journalism. And the economics of entertainment and eyeballs completely changed. It's become about clicks. We know that.
But it's not about clicks. Nothing sells journalism like Jeffrey Epstein stories. And then you find people say, oh, people aren't interested in Jeffrey Epstein. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, there's random bits of great journalism. There are.
No, but I'm trying to make it. Okay. I am failing. I desperately want to be having a different conversation.
I don't know what the conversation is you want to have.
Let's start from a different perspective.
Okay.
Bitcoin fixes everything. Now, you don't literally believe that. I don't literally believe. But somebody somehow thinks that this is a good slogan. So the question is, okay, assume that it doesn't fix everything. Assume that Bitcoin fixes a lot. Okay? That is a statement I would be up for. I think you guys would be up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get to a next thing, or does the Bitcoin culture? You see, the tech culture should have fixed science, but it couldn't. Mark Zuckerberg and Yuri Milner, came up with a prize. Let's give $3 million to people who are really good at science. Okay, well, it didn't do very much. Why couldn't science's little brother fix science? Well, in part because the ethos of software is we're here to destroy things that look old. Okay? And in some sense, that's where Bitcoin gets its energy. We're here to destroy things that look old and diseased and flabby. Okay, good on you. Now, what does the lesson of that destruction teach? Well, one thing it taught us in tech was don't build a new university. Disintermediate. Do Khan Academy. Okay? So you'll keep learning that lesson over and over and over again, but you never learn that there are some times when you want to go the other direction. This would be, in biology, this would be called regulated expression. There's some times when you want to break something up. There are other times when you want to bring something together. And it's not always the same thing. So my question is, does Bitcoin as a community, which of course isn't a community, but it's so tiresome. Every time you say something, immediately somebody will just come back with, no, you don't understand.
It's because we're decentralized. We all have different opinions.
It's because it's boring. I'm sorry to say it. It's just boring to go through this.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Is there a part of this community that understands time to build? Yeah. Time to build the sorts of things that look awful right now, that may become awful with time. They may degrade, right? Maybe you had like Edward R. Murrow and CBS News, and maybe CBS News got horrible. But there was a period of time where CBS News really mattered. Okay? Right now, it's time to build some stuff, to search for solutions to our problems. Problems of economic distribution, post-capitalism, post-communism. What comes after both capitalism and communism? What comes after, what comes in life cycle terms after the pill and reliable paternity tests? What comes in work after telecommuting? We've got 75 years of pent-up questions where we stayed in a stasis, where we're leading archaic lives in general. And everyone knows that our lives don't really make sense anymore. We have archaic money. We have archaic national stories. Okay, it's time for something new. And Bitcoin is a constructive story about destroying the old. But I'm looking for more of a story, given that it's the money, and the reason that money is so important is that it's fungible and allows us to do everything else. Right now, I would like to build a strategy for looking for human survival situations.
Maybe that can only be done in the fiat world. Maybe maybe the story of Bitcoin is the only way to win is not play, radical individualism. A lot of them are anonymous.
Maybe I want to go back to you just made the single best case for going back to something that I don't want to do. I don't want to go back into the fiat world. I want it to be Bitcoin and things of that nature. If the idea is that Bitcoin kind of mentality is so rooted in not centralizing, not having leaders, not, no trust, blah, blah, blah. If the problem is that all of that is co-traveling, that is the overlearned message that comes from having to deal with central bankers, that comes to dealing with lying activists posing as journalists, that comes from looking at citation cartels inside of academics, where people are just so deep in the political economy that they've stopped caring about their subjects. Okay, so I keep hearing this thing is honest. It's, it fixes things. And well, the question is, does it? Is there enough trust in this community? Is there enough that's positive and pro-social that allow the wealth that has accumulated under this to now do beautiful, amazing things?
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're talking about in some cases would be like patronage. Like it would be like, what is the group of Bitcoiners, if they become wealthy by owning a lot of Bitcoin, what some subset of those Bitcoiners are going to decide that getting human species living on other planets is very, very important, and they're going to dedicate resources to trying to push that forward. And I think from a government perspective, I think part of the reason why, and there's plenty of Bitcoin folks that are more on the like theoretical side of things, spend more time thinking about stuff like that have views of what this world is going to look like after Bitcoin kind of quote unquote wins. But I think a lot of us are more focused on what is the path going to look like as Bitcoin gears up to increasingly fight the fight against governments and against fiat currencies, so that there is some amount of struggle to imagine what comes after that, because we don't know what either the timing or the specifics around what that fight's going to look like.
Maybe we don't know either.
Well, I think you don't know, and I also think, let me be blunt about it, I also feel that people, that part of that meme, I just found out about Bitcoin and I'm here to save it, or something like this. Maybe in part, I feel like I've been fighting some fight since the early 1990s. And then Bitcoin comes around, 2009, 2010, and it's the newcomer on the block. And I'm super excited to see it. But I want to go back to fighting the fights that I was fighting in the early 1990s, one of which is about inflation. Let me just be very clear about it. I don't think the economics profession knows how to measure inflation.
Oh, I think they know. I just don't think they want to.
Oh, no, I don't think they know.
Well, the economics, department of the government?
No. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is the ones who are tasked in the United States with publishing the CPI and the variance of CPI. They are trained inside of the university system. I don't think academic economists know how to measure inflation, even theoretically. Like, the two ways in which they would like this number to go down, you see, because when the inflation estimate goes down, that means that tax brackets don't get indexed up. So they get to tax us more, and they get to give us less in terms of entitlements that are cost of living adjusted. Now, the two things that they know to bring down that number, right, that CPI number, that are clearest theoretically, is one, they say it shouldn't be a fixed basket, right? So imagine that we have tea and we have coffee.
Hedonic adjustments.
Well, hang on a second. If the cost of coffee goes way up because there's a frost, let's say, unseasonably cold temperatures in the coffee growing regions, if I'm indifferent between the two, I just switch to tea. And if you give me the money needed to buy back even amounts of coffee and even amounts of tea, I'm going to use almost all of that money not to purchase coffee, which is very expensive. I'm just going to buy tea because I'm equally as happy, and spend the rest on cocaine, let's say, something. And in that world, you're not talking about a cost of living adjustment, because I should be able to say I only need to compensate